All right. Well, in the interest of time, I'll kind of go ahead and start with introductions. I know that folks will continue adding into our forum as the clock ticks on, and they're more than welcome to do so. But as a means of saying welcome, hello. My name is Casella. I am the Director for Educational Partnerships and Access with Doorway to College Foundation. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us for this week's virtual forum. This week, we are discussing a really important issue right now, and that is how we approach working with middle and high school students in the time of COVID-19. Thanks for coming today. Thank you for those who have registered for the upcoming forums that we have scheduled for this time next week and for May 7th to follow. We have several great guests to talk with today about issues pertaining to working with students from their unique individual experiences. We also have a student student perspective rather with us today. We have teachers, administrators, advisors, and it should be a quick hour. Let's see, a couple of quick housekeeping points for everybody. The Q&A is open right now. We encourage all attendees to utilize that function to pose any questions that they might have for our panelists. Our panelists will have the ability to type back to you, and periodically throughout the next hour, they will do that. We encourage our hosts to check that functionality periodically throughout the conversation. If questions come up repeatedly, we as moderators will do our best to make sure that they are answered live during the course of our hour together. We do anticipate that some questions will probably remain unanswered just due to time restrictions, and in that event, we will be offering a follow-up date to be announced as far as that date goes. So TBD on that. If there is a resource or something that you think is important to get out there, I would definitely encourage you to offer it in the chat functionality as an attendee, as a resource to everyone participating. We certainly don't feel that we have a monopoly on expertise here, so please do feel free to refer others to any links, articles, etc. that might come up. Now let me get to our guests. I mentioned before that I am Casella. I'm the Director of Educational Partnerships and Access. As a means of introduction, I will pass it over to Adam Smith, who is our Director of Community Partnerships and Educational Access. He will introduce himself and allow our colleagues and panelists to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Allie. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Before we get started, if everybody can just throw in the comment section, the chat section, just put where you're coming from in our country, you know, where you currently are. So anybody who's attending, we have some people who are saying they're from Arkansas, Oklahoma City. Great to kind of get a perspective on where people are in the country. Some connectivity is great. We currently have 115 people on, so great to have you all here as well. My name is Adam Smith. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships and Educational Access for Doorway to College Foundation. Doorway to College is a mission-driven, non-for-profit organization. We are committed to helping students get to college through our innovative ZAPS, ACT, and SAT prep curriculum, as well as some great curriculum related to study skills. But we're also committed to getting students through college, which is the most important thing, through innovative partnerships with organizations, TRIO programs, other non-for-profits, community groups, and things like that, as well as hosting opportunities like this to bring thought leaders together from around the country to talk about timely issues related to education, and not just for some students, but for all. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to our esteemed group of panelists to let them introduce themselves one at a time, and we'll just start with Sam. Sam, you want to say hello to everyone?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Sam Geyer, and I am in the Marion, Cedar Rapids, Iowa area. I'm a project Lead the Way teacher, which is kind of tech programming, coding, design and modeling, and engineering. And I graduated from University of Iowa with a master's in science education. So kind of a STEM bundle of joy.
Thanks, Sam. Avora?
Hello, everyone. My name is Evora Baker. I am the Assistant Director of the Shepherd University Upward Bound program here in West Virginia, actually the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, Shepherdstown. And newly, Dr. Baker.
Wow.
Oh, Doc. Everybody give Doc a
Congratulations.
round of applause. Congratulations, Doc. You know you've been working, defending, so that's a big
Yes.
deal. Dennis. Dennis, I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dennis Douglas. I'm in the Tampa, Florida area. I'm a high school teacher. I've been teaching at the high school level for 7 years now. After retiring from the military, I've been a teacher in the Air Force for 14 years. So I teach all things aerospace science related with our students, and just welcome to everybody. Looking forward to a great dialogue.
Thank you, Dennis. Alicia?
Hi, I am Alicia Anthony. I work for Jefferson County Public Schools. I'm a language arts teacher. I teach 7th grade, all boys, middle school. I'm a graduate of Eastern Illinois University and Indiana University for my master's. And that's my
Thank you, Alicia. Tao?
Hi, I'm Tao Lei. I'm in the Dallas, Fort Worth area. So I'm a teacher here in Dallas for about 5 years. I've taught in Utah as well. I teach math. Currently, I'm teaching geometry and statistics, and I'm a graduate of Grand Valley State University and the University of Utah.
Outstanding. Monica Hunter, please.
Hey there, I'm Monica Hunter. I am an assistant principal with Jefferson County Public Schools in Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm also Alicia's mentor. She had her first year teaching under me at No Middle School for Jefferson County Public Schools. I'm currently working on my doctorate. So Dr. Baker, I'm following your footsteps. I'll be Dr. Hunter next spring. I'm excited about that. I'm working on my IRB approval right now. So that's a little bit about Monica Hunter.
Thank you, Monica. Letice?
Hi, everybody. My name is Letice Jenkins, and I am the high school academic counselor and grant project specialist with the Educational Talent Search Program out of Ivy Tech. I'm on the Lake County campus in Gary, Indiana. So I'm serving in the Northwest Indiana region.
Outstanding. Thank you, Letice. We're going to have Marilyn go next.
Oh my. Good afternoon, Marilyn Ruffin out of Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, a suburb of Madison, Wisconsin. I'm currently a director at a charter preschool. And prior to that, I spent 22 years as an engineer in the field of electrical engineering. And I'm currently a Sun Prairie School Board member past 5 years.
Okay, I didn't skip Miss Afia, but I wanted to make sure to have you, Afia, introduce yourself, and then because we're gonna give the student the chance to answer the first question. So Afia, you want to say hello to everyone and tell us what grade level you are currently in and where.
Hi, my name is Afia, and I'm currently a junior at Martinsburg High School in West Virginia, and I'm also part of Miss Baker's Upward Bound program in Shepherdstown.
Great, Afia. So Afia, can you tell us a little bit, just for everyone watching, because we've talked about how the effects of COVID-19 and school now being remote has affected professionals, right? But can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced in this transition What are some of the things and the people that the school, as well as TRIO, being in part of Upward Bound, has done to kind of help you with some of these challenges?
So one of my main challenges I've noticed is definitely like motivation to keep on track with things, especially because I noticed that online school is not for everyone. So it's it could be harder for some students to adjust. And it's been a little hard for me to adjust, but TRIO has definitely been a huge part of helping me and keeping me on track, because Miss Baker and all the other mentors and tutors never hesitate to reach out. And another thing I found that helps me is like doing video calls with maybe my friends that I haven't seen in a while if I need to do homework, and doing that in groups really helps as well.
Sophia, are there any things that you would recommend for all of the educators and professionals and parents and everybody who is on right now? Is there anything that you would recommend that we could do better from a student perspective in helping students get through this time and prepare for kind of the uncertainty coming into the fall?
That's a good question. From my experience right now, the majority of my teachers have been really good about like checking up on us and seeing how we're doing and seeing how we're progressing with everything. To improve, I guess, just maybe to remember to be understanding if maybe things aren't working completely right with all of the students, to just remember that there may be some students who are struggling more than others to adjust to everything. So just kind of being lenient with them is probably going to be helpful to get them on track.
Good. So for the rest of the panel, I think one of the questions we want to ask is, in what ways are you or your school or program checking in on students? In particular, there's a lot being talked about students' well-being, right? It's one thing their academics, it's another thing their well-being. So what ways are you personally as an educator and your program and or school checking in on the well-being of students? Monica, do you want to take that first?
Sure. We've been very intentional with how we've reached out to our students, families, guardians, because we do have a school of about 12 to 1,300 students. And our faculty, before non-traditional instruction started, we divided our students amongst our staff members. So every staff member is assigned between 8 and 15 students to contact twice a week. Of course, we do have some families who have been affected by COVID-19. We have some families who have lost family members. We've had entire families that have been stricken with the virus. And so our main focus, going back to what Athea said, is do no harm. So our goal is, because we've never done NTI before, our goal is to extend learning as opposed to a continuation of learning. So with that in mind, when we do make those contacts, we want to make sure first that our students are aware of the community resources that are available. We have a wonderful youth service center group that gets us all of these resources as far as help with medication, help with rent, help with utilities, help with food, feeding sites, all that stuff. We want to make sure that they're okay first as a human being before we even get into the instructional side of it. And of course, we do have about 30% of our population who we haven't been able to get in contact with for whatever reason. But again, we're looking at doing no harm to our students. So even in that, we're still calling, we're still emailing, we're still texting in hopes that we can hear from them, letting them know, I understand that you may be down, I understand that you may be affected. We want to make sure that you're okay first. So the first thing we did was we divided our students amongst our staff members, and we come together at least once a week to determine who have we not been able to get in contact with and develop next steps to make sure that we're doing all that we can to encourage those students just to feel okay emotionally, socially, just feel okay within themselves before they even get to the instructional piece of it, because we want to do no harm at this point. We've never experienced this, as a country, as a nation, as, you know, even in our lifetime with the world. But if we just let them know that we're part of their community, we are family, and we're just trying to get through this together, that's our main focus whenever we're making those contacts. And that's how we did it with Jefferson County and with Iroquois High School.
Adam, you're muted. You're muted, Adam.
Sorry. Latice, do you want to take that question too and talk a little bit about what you're doing to check in on students' well-being from a TRIO perspective? And Gary?
Okay, well, basically, doing a lot of emailing and telephone outreach. The problem that I know I've been running into is a lot of times when we first started, I was able to contact some students to do follow-up, to like send out resources and to just check in to see how everybody was doing. But as we're getting toward the end of the month, I'm coming to find out that sometimes telephones get disconnected, or they have to wait till the beginning of the month to pay the bill. So you kind of lose that contact in those last weeks. So you have to go back and try to reconnect at the beginning of the month and just try to stay on top of that.
Very good, very good. Okay, I know there's some people that are trying to join the meeting. So I put the link to joining the Zoom call because we had so many folks. I put it in the chat box, so if people are interested, okay? Next question for Sam in particular. Can you talk a little bit, because I think one of the things, you know, being an older guy, that back in the day, they talked a lot about the digital divide and the technology divide. And I think what happened was that because everybody got a smartphone, I don't think it was emphasized as much until COVID-19 and some of the side effects of COVID. So Sam, can you talk a little bit, especially with Project Lead the Way, what are some of the things that you're seeing your district do, your building do, to kind of bridge that digital divide between students who have access to technology and students who don't?
So what we've been doing every week is sending a print packet home at lunch pickup. So we're still providing lunches for any student who needs it. And so every teacher produces a 1 to 2 page document for that week of just an activity they can do at home. And as a tech teacher, my colleague over at Excelsior, the other middle school, you know, it's been definitely a challenge when your class is 100% computer based. And then to think, what are we going to do? How do we teach coding without the ability to code? And so COVID came 1 year too early because of the middle schools are going 1-to-1 next year. I know some districts in the area have deployed Wi-Fi hotspots within vans or buses. But I mean, we've called every student and we've asked them, you know, do you have access to a phone? Do you have access to the internet? And so we're kind of developing that roster of kids who don't have that. And then once that's built, I think we're going to try to start getting technology into the students' hands. But it's, you know, it's a weird and slow process having to go through all the channels to find out what we can do and what we can't do. But, you know, there are a lot of activities you can do at home, from building a structure out of marshmallow and spaghetti to, I mean, we've been thinking of really great stuff to do at home. So, yeah.
Alicia, can you talk a little bit, because your school, I know, 7th grade, all boys, bless your heart, but about 99% free and reduced lunch. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing with your students and the building and the district is doing for students who don't have ready access to technology?
The district has actually been really, really good about making
tech issue.
sure that all students have access to technology. They within maybe about a 2 weeks time. And I know a lot of my family are using that. Fortunately,
Alicia, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. I think your connection might be bad.
Yeah, try to mute her.
We are one-to-one. We have a supervisor, and so my
Avora, do you want to take that question? What are you guys doing at your school?
Oh, Avora, you're on mute right now.
Repeat the question again, please, Adam.
Can you talk a little bit about what Shepherd's University Upward Bound is doing to deal with some of the technology gap proactively with students who don't have access to the internet? We've heard stories of students sitting in parking lots of Starbucks or McDonald's to get Wi-Fi access. You know, what are you doing as a TRIO program to assist TRIO eligible students, for people who don't know, that are participating are all either first generation and or low income? So what are you currently doing?
Well, fortunately enough, there's legislature that dictates how we can spend our funds. And it's been opened up so that we can provide hotspots for students. I'm actually in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, so connectivity can be an issue in some parts, but not a lot of parts. So like the Berkeley Springs area, which is right up the mountain from me, there is some connect because there aren't any providers there. So we've had a hard time trying to navigate that. Right now, my director, the director of our program, is in talks with the university about providing the hotspots to our students. One of the things that we've been doing as part of the West Virginia TRIO Association is this is the time, like we've really been reaching out to our legislators, letting them know, hey, we need to do something about this now, because this is a continuing problem in West Virginia, and especially when you get into some of the more mountainous areas here in West Virginia, the connectivity is not that great here. So definitely reaching out to our legislators and trying to start a dialogue with them about getting companies to come in. In fact, I just found out that one of the major companies here actually just filed bankruptcy. So that's good. That's going to compound this issue for us.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, Avora. So we have a question from the participants. Mr. Wilson, can you take yourself off mute and introduce yourself to the group?
I'm Tyrone Wilson. I'm an academic advisor at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky.
So, Mr. Wilson, one of the panelists, and I know or one of the participants, I know we're talking specifically about current middle and high school students, but I know that there's so much uncertainty around our current seniors. And one of the questions is, so for folks with graduating seniors, what could college and university people do better? What are some of the things UK is doing? What are some of the things that you wish colleges and universities would be doing, and at this time, to help students with a successful transition?
Well, the University of Kentucky, we're trying to, as you might imagine, we're doing everything virtually right now. We're giving students virtual tours of campus, virtual tours of academic departments, etc. We haven't really begun our fall orientation for the summer. That doesn't begin until the first week in July. So we have yet to go through that whole process, but the main thing is keeping students connected with universities. So we're constantly sending them emails about the things that we want to accomplish for the fall, talking to them about advanced placement credit, all those kinds of things that they have questions about. For the most part, I think that what I would hope that universities of our size and other universities and four-year colleges around the country is just to explain to students honestly about how the fall semester is going to look. I don't think it's going to be a traditional fall semester. And I think that students and parents need to kind of embrace that. It's the whole thing that we are talking about now is, you know, preparing for the worst, but planning for the best. But I think that students really need to know coming into university for the fall as incoming freshmen that there probably won't be any football. There probably won't be any basketball. It's going to be a different experience for large institutions like our own.
Thanks, Guy. I think that's one of the things that most of the folks, and I talk to universities around the country, I don't think Dennis has a daughter is a senior who's going to be going to college this fall. I think the best thing we can do is to prepare our students for not the typical, right? We've been advising students to register if they're going to UK in the fall as a freshman to register for online courses because we know those online seats are limited, right? Understand that it's probably not going to be a typical fall. We all know how challenging these fall semesters are, and we're seeing some of the challenges on our college campuses, knowing that that probably will continue. And I don't know many higher ed folks that can picture a fall semester that will happen as usual or happen without disruption, if that makes sense. Dennis, can you talk a little bit? I don't know if you have many students that you are dealing with there in Orlando that have a digital divide. I'm sorry, Tampa, that have an IEP or a 504. But can you talk a little bit about how students' accommodations are being met, knowing that they may have some previously agreed to learning challenges?
Right. So in our district, many of our students have challenges, have educational plans. So what we've done is, like one of the other panelists said a moment ago, we've broken those students up into areas where each counselor is responsible for a certain amount of those students. And the counselor then works hand in hand with that student, with the student's teachers and the parents to develop a plan to ensure that the students get their educational needs met. I wanted to just quickly talk about the internet and getting people connected to the internet. One of the things that we're doing in our district is we are handing out devices, laptops, iPads to all of our students that are in need of a device. And we coordinated with some of the local providers so that they could get internet access for free. So we're trying to bring in our community partners to help us to ensure that all of our students are able to access their learning modules online, even when they may not be able to because of some economical disadvantage that they might be experiencing at the time. So all of our students, 98% of our students right now is online, is connected to the district via internet. And for a large portion of those students, it's at no cost to them. So to get back to your first question, again, our counselors are reaching out to each and every one of our students with an IEP. Our teachers are responsible for ensuring that they coordinate not only with the student, but we also talk to the parents. I've spoken to so many parents since we have transitioned to our online learning environment, just to ensure that they are actually seeing the lessons that the students are working on so that they're in the knowledge as well. They're in the know about what's going on with their students. So that's kind of some of the things that we're doing here in the Tampa area in my county.
Great, thanks, Dennis. So one of the things that I know that is a challenge for our educators and all of our professionals who are living this work from home life is they're dealing with their own children who are at home. And now they've become at-home homeschool teachers, daycare, having to deal with their students. Alicia, can you talk a little bit about balancing your own work as an educator with some of the responsibilities and the pressures of dealing with home and how you're providing yourself some good self-care?
you hear me? Can you hear me?
No.
No.
No. So that's a great example of a way that it isn't working, right? Because your kids are there and they're online and they're using the internet, and right now these internet networks are totally clogged, right? So Marilyn, can you talk a little bit about how you're balancing self-care and you're making sure you're taking care of yourself at this work at home era, and making sure also your job is being done as not only a school board member in Sun Prairie, but your work in at One City Schools there in Madison?
Yes, that is a challenge for all of us, for sure. Everyone's on Zoom these days. And so you really have to take time out that once that Zoom meeting is over to get up, get up from your computer and go walk around. So as a board member, we try to make sure that we tell our staff that. And then as a One City, my role is Director of Family and Community Initiatives. So on the other side, yes, I work with our families and we look at and make sure that they have the technology needs for themselves, for their children. And so we've come to some challenges where we have our preschoolers, like 4K, 5K, first grade. We provide learning opportunities, not only learning packets, like hard copies, but also being online. So we noticed that some of our parents give their phone to their child. And so there's where that, the instance come where the data, using too much of the online data is not helping. So we will provide a Chromebook or we'll provide an iPad for their child to use so that the parent who can continue working can do what they need to do. By having us as working with our parents with this digital divide and also making sure they're taking care of themselves, we as One City, a charter school here in Madison, Wisconsin, afford the opportunities for our parents to be able to do both of them. So it's a challenge, but we're working on that.
That's really good. That's really good. So kind of to dovetail on that, wanted to ask Tao a question. So we're all dealing with this uncertainty and no one is saying there's some districts that just came out. I know the state of Minnesota just came out today and said there's going to be no school for the rest of the year, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen in the summer. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the fall. And there's a lot of research. The Chronicle of Higher Ed did a webinar last week that talked about how our students are getting used to at-home learning. All of these resources that everybody's talking to have been brought to bear. We've all figured it out-ish, right? And then students are going to go into the classroom, whether that be middle school, high school, or college. And then if there's an interruption, they're going to have to toggle almost like between two screens on your computer between the two. How could a potential fall that starts but then has to end because of COVID-19, how could that negatively affect students? And how do you feel about what is the best solution at this time for your students in your district, especially with math?
Sorry. So I've actually thought about this a lot because we're going to be starting school in the fall, or, that's the plan, or even summer school. And how is that going to look like? Are the desks going to have to be 6 feet apart? How are we going to make sure we sanitize between classes and, making sure that the students are being safe? How do we keep ourselves safe? How do we keep teachers safe? Are we going to be wearing masks and everything too while we're teaching? These are just, the new normal that a lot of students and I and a lot of the faculty and I have been talking about a lot. We're really thankful in our district that this year we went to one-on-one with technology. So we were able to have every student a Chromebook that they were able to take home, and, just making sure that the students, just keeping them prepared, making sure that they are prepared for anything that to come, if whether it's, you know, we start school at the beginning of the school year, we're in class, and now they're going to have to take this online again for, you know, a couple months, and who knows what could happen, you know, just to get them prepared, you know, making sure on their well-being and all these things that are just really uncertain. And we haven't really talked much about what school is actually going to look like in the fall or in the summer, because, you know, we have no idea. So I think just making sure that the students are prepared for if we need to take this online again, how can we protect them while they're in school in large classes of 30 plus, and how can we protect ourselves as well?
Feels like, and who wants to comment, because that's great, Tao, who would it be easier to just say there's not going to be school, right? Because most of the universities where Tyrone is, where a lot of y'all, the universities have said there's not going to be face-to-face this summer, right? And my guess is it's going to be pretty short order where they start addressing what fall looks like, especially with a lot of the dire situations at colleges and universities. Would it be easier if the K-12 system said something similar at this point? And if it was up to you, anybody, what would be the best way to handle K-12 going into the summer and fall?
Oof, I think it would be easier to say, okay, so we can just extend this online learning to the fall, and, you know, and then per recommendation by CDC to see if it's safe enough for us to return. But I'm afraid that if we do that, you know, a lot of the students, their wellness and their well-being as well, being at home and just not being face-to-face with the teachers and their friends, like there's just a lot of emotional issues that they're also dealing with. And, you know, a lot of my students have reached out to me and telling me that this is actually hitting them a lot harder than they had, you know, could ever imagine. So yeah, yes, I think it would be a lot easier, but if we don't give them something, hope to look forward to, a possibility of returning in the fall, it might just, you know, shatter all their all their wellness and their hope, you know, just trying to come back. Yeah.
Marilyn.
I'm sorry, Latisse had raised her hand.
Yeah, Latisse, go ahead. I'm sorry, I missed it.
And also, I think because I am a parent as well, and my child has to go to school online. This is the first for her. She's a 7th grader. I really believe if you go and look at it saying that in the fall there's going to be online schooling, that it's going to be so much loss, because just talking to parents and then talking to counselors and other people that work in the school districts, there are so many kids that are not doing work online, or they're half doing work online, which means they are already falling, but they're falling behind. Parents can only do so much. And then if teachers are not, all teachers for all subjects are not doing Zoom, and you don't have the access to Zoom, or if you have a very low attention span, you look at children that have IEPs, their attention span or their the disconnect with learning, trying to learn on your own or with your parent, that's a big gap, and that's a big divide. So I think, totally going online in the fall, I don't think that would be a good idea. It needs to just try to, I guess, be some type of way that the toggling or back in class and finding a way for students to get back acclimated to being in the classroom setting will probably work best.
Really good. Monica, you had something to add on that?
Yes, I think another thing is an equity issue. We have a lot of students who don't have devices, and right now we're pushing paper packets, we're pushing choice boards, we're pushing things they can do on their own, knowing that materials may not even get back to the teachers for NTI this round. So I'm afraid that and it is what it is, our district is already looking at how to go into the fall with social distancing, with requiring that staff and students wear a mask. Think about kindergartners and first graders wanting to wear a mask, or, you know, they want to be friendly and they want to hug and they want to snot all over each other. That's what kindergartners and first graders do. But I'm looking at what is that going to look like for those families? We may have to start the school year off with NTI. What if we don't have students that have devices? How are we going to get them that material? We can't continue to extend their learning without continuing their learning. So what's that going to look like? How are we going to remediate for those students that we never got in contact with over the spring? So there are a lot of questions that we need to answer over the summer, even before we get to that point. Looking at, we could have another influx of this virus along with the flu in the fall or winter. Then what? So one thing that my district is trying to do now is purchase Chromebooks for all of our low performing schools so they can start combating that issue now. But even with that, we have teachers who have been in the profession, whether they've been in the profession for 2 years or 20 years, that don't know how to use Google Classroom, let's be honest. So we have to do extensive professional development for them. We're gonna have to do professional development for parents to help the students. What if the parents are back to work and their students are at home? Like, there's so much to this that has to be answered before we can even open the doors or even think about opening the doors in August. And then let's talk about graduation. For these kids that are about to graduate, what's that going to look like for them? And they're concerned about crossing over from childhood to adulthood with that graduation. How are we going to do that? So there's so many things, it's a facet of unanswered questions that may be impossible to answer right now, because this is new uncharted territory for everyone. And for us to ensure that everyone's successful, we've got to make sure that everyone is on a level playing field. So that's an equity issue with access to technology, equity issue with access to even paper packets. How are we going to get those paper packets back to the schools if we have to start the school year off the way we're ending it this year? It worries me a little bit. It worries me.
That's really good, Monica. And one of the things that I think all of the educators that are on here today, right, not just the panelists, all of our participants, when you start hearing, I live in East Tennessee, so I start hearing, we're going to reopen massage studios and we're going to reopen all of these different things. But no, if the schools are closed, then what happens to the kids? I mean, I grew up as a latchkey kid, but that's not cool anymore, especially for our most at-risk, needy students. Now, we know that for many of our students, home is not the safest place emotionally, physically, spiritually, but at least there's an adult around. But now when you have parents being called back to work, when the schools are closed for the rest of the year, that's one of the things, and I don't know, Sam, if that's something you're willing to talk about, but I don't know if there's any educators that have been involved or people from an education perspective in some of the economic decisions that we're making, but how could educators have a voice in that that would make a little bit more sense?
Are you asking from the standpoint of deciding businesses are open or how to open the schools back up?
I think all of the above, opening businesses, opening things back up while not having educators maybe at the table to think about some of those ramifications and what would you say in your local government or to your government officials about that?
I mean, I definitely think that with people getting more comfortable wearing masks and being safe and kind of having that sanitary aspect, we can start opening things back up, and having educators at the table, I think, will provide a lot of insight into in what small ways could we get small groups of students and get them to a location and make sure they're safe. Because what Monica was saying when she was kind of summarizing the equity issues, I was thinking standards-based grading, even grading, a lot of these, you can give them packets, you can give them assignments, but it's very hard when you're not there on a daily basis to gauge where the students are at, if they're getting understanding. And even if we started a normal school year in the fall, what have they missed out on with this spring that might not prepare them for the fall? What are we looking at are the students behind? Where are they? And so I think with the economic decisions, there's going to be a lot of ideas that people are going to be putting forward, you know, to save their businesses, to save their local economies. And I think that the education sector has ideas and the business sector has ideas. And with kind of them communicating, I think we can kind of expound on each other's ideas and get to a point where we can start meeting face to face again, but in a safe fashion. And I think that's the goal, is to get back to some semblance of normalcy so we can get, you know, that face-to-face contact again and know where they are. Like you said, physically, spiritually, anything like that, that has to happen before they can even start learning again. Because so many of these kids are in states where it's just like, that's very low priority for them. They're trying to survive. They're trying to find a way to, you know, exist in this new world that we temporarily live in. So,
right. Well, and we talk about the concept of summer melt, right? That you melt off some of what you learned between the summer between 3rd and 4th grade. But now we're not talking about 3 months. We're talking about potentially 6. And we're talking about a possibility of a student getting used to a new normal and then going back to normal and having to, okay, now I've got to focus on being in the classroom, getting up on time, having this structure, and the potential of that being yanked away from me, right? Which could potentially happen this fall, which is even more scary. So thinking even more about our TRIO programs, Evora, what are you all doing in West Virginia? Because you're dealing with some major economic disparities and things there. What are you doing proactively to deal with a fall that is a little bit uncertain for your current students?
To be honest, Adam, I can pretty much only speak from a TRIO perspective. There are talks with the Board of Education here, and I'm looking forward to a meeting that's happening next week. But outside of the meeting from next week, I haven't heard anything, and we've just been instructed to take everything from a virtual perspective and continue planning. I have a 6-week summer academy that I'm in the process now of planning and hoping that everything goes off without a hitch, hoping that I can get buy-in from parents and students and I can fill my classrooms this summer, and also the instructors. So it's really interesting because it's like this forum that we're having here today. You know, we're gonna hope for the best and plan for the worst. You know, we have to. But some type of planning has to happen, and I don't think that we've had an opportunity to really start thinking about things and what it's going to look like in the fall for our students here in West Virginia.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think one of the other questions, and I want to introduce Carol Brocker from Doorway to College. Carol, have you come off mute and introduce yourself? But I want to talk a little bit about our current junior class, right? Our seniors, and we're hearing a lot of colleges and universities talk right now about, well, we don't care about your standardized test score, right? Why are those scores just as important, Carol, now for our class of 2021? And what can students do to prepare now for college, knowing that things are a little bit uncertain? But first, introduce yourself, Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Breaker. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Can you hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Great. I'm the professional development trainer and the online program administrator. So Doorway to College, we have bumped up all of our online classes for ACT and SAT prep. And many of you may have heard that most of the colleges and universities around the United States have gone test optional for the class of 2021. However, we are concerned that students will still need those test scores to apply for scholarships, which of course will be more important than ever. So we have gone all online classes. So we have serviced all the students who had classes canceled this spring, and will continue to do that through the summer as the standardized test companies change their test score dates and decide what they're going to do for the fall. So you can continually check our website to see, and we will post there what we know and what classes we have available. And we will be offering our usual test prep classes online as we go forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. Allie, you had a question, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Afia, you and I had an opportunity to chat a little bit before our audience joined us. But I was curious to hear from you. Do you think it would be, what are your feelings on going back in the fall? Do you think that it would be better to go back live? What are your thoughts? What are you and your peers talking about right now in terms of coming back in the fall?
So it's like mixed for me, because I would really like to go to school. I would really like to go back and be in a classroom setting and have that structure, because I realize that's like a big part of me. It's a big part of me doing well in school. But on the other hand, I do worry about the general safety of everyone, and I don't want to go back too early if it's not safe to do so and just create a bigger problem. So like, I think about that a lot, and it's like mixed feelings about going back in the fall. But if it's safe enough, I would love to go back and be in that setting.
Are you seeing, generally speaking, that your friends and colleagues and those who you're in conversation with probably do all want to go back to face-to-face in the fall?
Yeah, it's been basically everyone I know saying that they really would like to go back to school. Even people who didn't particularly express their like for going to school in the beginning have said that they want to go back. And I think it's just, even beyond the everyday social interaction, it's like that structure that helps you get through the day, that everyone misses.
You bet. Yeah, Sam and I have had that conversation. Sam here on our panel have had that conversation quite a few times. There's only so much Netflix you can watch, right?
Yeah.
The silver lining to this might be that maybe a lot of kids start liking school a little more. So, hey, it wasn't so bad.
That would be great.
I think it's definitely given more students, including myself, an appreciation for school, and helped us see the bright side of being in a classroom setting and being in school physically.
Well, and I think, Afia, it's done the same thing for us as so-called professionals, right? We complain about work so much. Boy, I wish I don't have, but I tell you what, this work from home thing is not easy, right? Yeah. I've been working from home for 2 years almost, and it is, if you have to provide your own structure, take care of your own well-being. We have all learned to appreciate things that we didn't appreciate before, right?
Yes.
You would think being able to wear your pajamas every day and go to work would be great. It gets old pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
Marilyn, can you talk a little bit, because you're also a board member, right? You're the only school board member that's here. Can you talk a little bit about some of the considerations and conversations you as a board member are having with your colleagues as you look into the future, the summer and the fall for your district? What are some of those conversations that you're hearing? What are some of the things you're hearing from parents? What are some of the things that everybody listening needs to know to better equip and prepare our students for an uncertain fall semester?
And that is the million-dollar question. Because conversations are just now starting. Exactly. Just now starting, especially right now for graduation, high school graduation. What are we going to do with the graduation and prom, and how does it look like, in the end? What's going to happen in the summer? What's going to happen in the fall? Yeah, that conversation is just beginning. As opposed to my daytime role at the charter school, we are year-round. We are a year-round school. And so, right now we're closed because the governor has closed us through till when is the school year in? June 30th or so? Well, we're just waiting. We'll start off on July 1st. You know, that'll be our third semester. So there's no summer slide with us. We just continue on. But it is a challenge because, like everyone else trying to do this online, is you know, difficult, and having parents at home also difficult. But you made a great point. What happens when they have to go to work? Well, what happens with the children? And that's what they want now. My role as working with our parents as a family, it's an important role because it's not just the kids, it's the whole family to make it a success. And you have to incorporate it all. It's not just the children. So as a board member, because I wear multiple hats, as a board member, that conversation is definitely starting. Like, what are we going to do? The high point right now is graduation, and social media is not helping. You know, everyone's always upset. Well, they just sad that, oh, now my child has worked 12 years and they should be able to have a graduation. Well, yeah, of course, you know, we all understand that, but we are in difficult times right now. So we have to change our mind, change our thinking, and looking at it, you know, in a different aspect. And the future of our children, that's what we're working towards. So hold that thought, that question, and we can come to the next seminar. I might be able to answer that more as a board member as far as what we decide to do.
We'll invite you back, Marilyn.
Marilyn, you have
We'll
all
see
the
you next
answers.
week. Yeah.
Well, and I think, and we have one question coming up from Teresa that we'll ask in one quick second. One of the things that I would offer is that young people are extremely resilient. And I think they are good sniffers when we aren't being honest. And I think if we don't know, it's okay to say we don't know, right? It's okay to say, hey, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. This is scary for me too. I think they do a really good job of sniffing out when you're being disingenuous and you aren't being honest, right? And so I think telling them, I don't know what's going to happen. When our seniors, our class of 2020, don't get a prom and don't get a graduation, I have students all over the country asking me, well, Adam, well, what about fall? I can't envision you residence hall this fall. I don't see a space where that works, right? But telling them honestly and then giving them an opportunity, but this is how I think we can do it. This is some of the things we can do. So Ms. Teresa has a question. Anybody can raise their hand to answer this. Scheduling one's time well is one of the stumbling blocks affecting academic success for new college students. What kind of guidance is being given to your students about effective time management and how to study while schooling at home? How can you take that? So what Teresa is asking is that new college students really struggle with time management. Because this environment is a lot like college, less structured, what kind of guidance are you giving to your students about how to effectively work from home and schedule their time? Yep.
Yep. Okay. So I've made each one of my students, I made for myself a calendar on Excel, and it's broken up into 15-minute slots. So using that, I share with my students, and if they want to break it up into 30-minute slots, so they can do, okay, this is the day where I do this homework assignment, and then the next day I do the next homework assignment. Lunch is the same time every day, and then I tell them to schedule time in there for exercise, time for, you know, reading, time away from everybody. That's something that I've been really stressing to my students, that they need time to make sure that they are getting away from everybody in their home, because a lot of my students have to take care of their brothers and their sisters, and making sure that they get their schedule on track before they take care of themselves. So they're not just managing their own schedule, they're managing their sibling schedules as well. So that's something that they've been dealing with a lot. So just having a schedule that's broken up into 15 minutes interval, and then I have one for 30-minute interval, and then we have one for an hour interval.
It's really good. So for all the TRIO folks on here, all the TRIO participants to know, Tao was my Upward Bound student when she was starting rising 9th grade. So that's how old I am. I always tell them they get older and I stay the same. But it makes you super proud because that's some TRIO structure, Tao, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just...
Go ahead.
Yes, that's just making sure that we have your day planned out, time for education, time for fun, and time for you, time for, you know, your growth and your well-being.
This is so great. Allie, you want to close us out?
Sure. Yeah, I would just like to thank everyone for their time for this past hour. It flew by. Next week, we plan to discuss similar concepts, similar issues with a different batch of panelists. If folks want to go ahead and register for next week, Trio Strong, totally agree in the comments. We will be focusing more on high school students who might be transitioning to college next week. And then May 7th, following that, we'll be focusing more on higher education. I imagine in the 2 weeks that will go from now until then, a lot will change, but we'll be keeping up with those issues, and we'll be talking about that on May 7th. All of those registrations are available via Zoom. I will be sending out a follow-up email to all registrants with some information about Doorway to College, just who we are, the folks hosting these panels, and just thanks so much for all of our panelists and attendees' time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Y'all be